The final of the World Championships saw a huge comeback in the men's 5000 meter, with many of the strongest athletes in the event not even medaling. Today, I will be breaking down the race to understand exactly how it was won, because this final confirmed to me the importance of one key trait in the longer distances. I will also be breaking down the women's 800 meter final to understand how the Kenyans pulled a shock upset on heavy favourite Keely Hodgkinson. But starting off with the men's 5000 meter, which featured one of the most stacked fields in recent years. These included the Americans, Grant Fisher, Nico and Hocker. Whilst Fisher and Young had not looked great in the 10k, for many people, Hocker was a favourite for the gold medal. He was also on a redemption arc after being disqualified for jostling in the semi-finals of the 1500, and would be running on pure hate with a point to prove. But eyes were also on Ingebrigsten, fresh off his upset victory in the 10,000 metres, and Belgium's Isaac Keely, who took a surprise win in the Lausanne Diamond League to outkick the likes of Fisher. Whilst neither runner had the pure strength of the Americans, they had shown great finishing speed in the home straight. George Mills was another contender representing Great Britain, and with a 12:46 personal best in the Oslo Diamond League, he was always going to be a threat. Jakob Ingebrigsten was also competing, but after a rocky 5,000 meter heat and a terrible 1500 campaign, no one was really seeing him as a serious contender. The race started off with Hocker controlling from the front as he did in his heat and the US Championships. Since Hocker probably has the best kick of the entire field, it's in his interest to make the race slow, and controlling from the front is an easy way to stay out of trouble and dictate the pace of the race. He had some early success with this, leading them through at a pedestrian 13:45 pace. But after only 600 metres, Grant Fisher took the lead and stretched out the field with a 61-second lap. Teammate Nico followed him. Fisher and Young would continue to grind out a fast pace, alternating the lead position in order to give the other a break. Even Ethiopia's Hagos helped out, taking the lead for part of the race to keep the pace hot. Given that these three runners have much better strength than they do speed, it's in their interest to make sure the race is fast, and to try and take the sting out of the kicker's legs. Fisher had been known to use a hybrid version of this tactic by letting the pace be tactical at the start of the race, but then dropping a very fast last mile. He tried this in the heat, but despite running a 3:57 last mile, he wasn't able to shake the field, finishing 6th. Since he wouldn't win a kicker's race, and his mile burn-up tactic hadn't worked, it seemed his only option was to try and grind out a fast race. This was a brutal task though, as front-running a 5k aggressively is a mentally punishing task. And the terrible weather in Tokyo didn't help things either. The field began to bunch with a mile to go, with only George Mills being dropped by that pace. It was clear he was having other issues. But to everyone's surprise, Jakob Ingebrigsten took the front of this pack and maintained a steady pace. And I think we all had this moment where we thought, surely not. Surely he's not about to kick and take an insane victory after everything that's happened this year. Crashed out in the heats, barely made the final, doubted by everyone, and he was leading this race with only 2 laps left. But unfortunately, the dream was not to be, as he got swallowed up in the last lap as everyone crowded around and launched their final kick. They hit the bell with Ethiopian prodigy Binyam Mahari leading and Keely right behind him. The Americans were near the back of the pack, with Hocker third last in the group. Mahari stretches for home in the final 200, but Hocker has been able to move up the field and is kicking hard. The youngster fades as Keely and Hocker overtake him. It's these two in the home straight, but at this point it was never in doubt, as the American takes a strong victory to win the gold medal in Tokyo. Keely took the silver and Grecia held out for bronze, making this his second medal of the champs. And you've got to give Hocker his credit where it's due. He was my personal pick to win for the 5,000 metres because his kick is just insane, and the person with the best kick is usually going to win a championship style 5,000 metre. A lot of people were questioning whether he could thrive in a sub-13 race, but given that he ran 12:57 indoors, I was pretty confident he could survive a 12:50 race, especially with the championship peak. The weather in Tokyo also made it pretty unlikely that we would even get to that stage anyway. Honestly though, his finishing speed is just a cheat code. It's so strong that it negates the terrible position he puts himself in the last lap. It was the same in USA's. He let himself get swallowed up, starts the final lap several positions down, and is still able to make up ground and glide past the field. I honestly wonder if he could challenge a prime Jakob in this event, because his kick is just otherworldly. I would still bet on Jakob because he's the more versatile athlete, and Jakob's kick in the 5,000 metres is nothing to scoff at, but the American has announced himself as a serious threat in the distance. Maybe he'll be the next Mo Farah of the 5k. Grant Fisher and Nico finished a disappointing championships for them. Neither medalled in the 10,000 metres, and today they placed 8th and 6th respectively. I do think there's a certain amount of physical factors at play, such as not peaking for the right moment and the Tokyo weather really impacting both of them. I really respect that they went for it during this race, and I think they did everything they could to win, since there was no other tactic that was likely to work. The problem is that sub-13 is not enough to drop a fast 5k field these days, and the conditions in Tokyo made anything quicker near impossible. These guys have shown the necessity of a strong kick in championship finals. It does not matter if you can run 12:44. The most important trait for a long distance runner is ironically great finishing speed. That's why I say the best space for a 5,000 meter runner is a 1500 meter background, and Hocker is proving that. Now some might point out that Fisher managed to get a double bronze medal in Paris, And as impressive as that was, most of the big threats in this championships were not a threat in Paris. Gracia, Keely and Hocker were not competing. Yes, of course, he medalled in the 10k, but that was run in a way that suited him well and was pretty unorthodox for a championship style race. The thing is, he's not bad in the last 400 meters. He can actually kick quite well off a hot pace, but he just doesn't have that natural finishing speed you need for a 13-minute race. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I can see a world where he never wins another championship medal again, because he is just not suited to the way most of these races are run. In fairness, Young has developed his kick a lot this year and probably has more potential. I really think Grant has very little chance to change anything unless he is able to get himself into world record level strength. He's developed his kick this year, but a lot of this is just genetic, and there's nothing you can do about it. As for Jakob, I maintain my position that he probably shouldn't have been at this year's champs. He did much better than I expected in this race, and finished with a 13:02 in 10th. But even then, he was clearly not anywhere close to medal contention shape, and only risked further injury by competing this week. He says he's not ruling out the World Cross Country Championships in January, which will hopefully be enough time for him to get back into proper fitness. I just hope he doesn't rush things and ends up with a compromised 2026. But we move on now to the women's 800 meter, which saw Great Britain's Keely going in as a heavy favourite after 2 dominant wins in the Silesia and Lausanne Diamond League. Despite coming off a year of injury, she had been able to return with a 154.74 and a 155.69 in terrible rainy conditions. Challenging her though would be compatriot and Olympic bronze medalist Georgia Hunter-Bell and defending world champion Mary Mora. There were several other runners that could also pose a threat to Keely. One such runner is Switzerland's Audrey Werro, who was fresh off a 155.91 personal best in the event. But as the Olympic champion, the fastest woman in the world this year, and someone who wasn't afraid to lead from the front, Keely was going in as a huge favourite. The race started off with Hodgkinson and Mora going to the front and battling for that pole position. The Brit was likely going to try and lead from the front Wanyoni style to make the race a battle of fitness. As she is the strongest athlete of the field, it would suit her abilities well and reduces the chance of a dark horse pulling an upset. It's also much easier to lead an 800 meter than it is the other events. Mary Mora was presumably leading to try and counter this. Her personal best of 156.03 is much slower than Hodgkinson's, but she has beaten the Brit on multiple occasions with superior tactics. Mora often likes to control the first lap of the race from the front and keep it slow. She then uses her 400 meter speed to kick away from the field and win in a last lap burn-up. The two would battle for the front for the entire first lap, with Mora maintaining a fragile lead, running as close to the outside of lane 1 as she could to stop the overtakes while making sure Keely didn't slip on the inside. She was able to maintain this kg balance, but was forced to go through the first 400 meters in a blistering 55.73. Keely tried to surge at 500 meters but was denied by Mora. She tried again at 600 meters and was finally able to overtake her. The Brit charges for home with Georgia Hunter-Bell following her. Mora fades whilst her fellow Kenyan, Lillian Odera, overtakes. They come into the home straight. It's Keely and Hunter-Bell, but Lillian Odera kicks on the outside and takes the surprise victory. Hunter-Bell gets the silver, with Keely taking a disappointing bronze medal. A huge upset by Helen Odera, but how did she pull it off and why did Keely fade in the home straight? When we look back in the race, I think Keely spent too much energy trying to overtake Mora. And if I'm honest, I think she gave the Kenyan a little bit too much respect. Mora was doing a good job at making the overtake as awkward as possible, but it felt like Keely was a little indecisive in the moment. I think she could have justifiably slipped on the inside pretty early on, as the gap was not small by any means. Of course, the pace was hot, but then Keely should have committed to tucking in behind Mora and conserving energy for a big back straight push. This is all with the benefit of hindsight, but the fact remains that Keely let Mora mess up her race. It kind of reminds me of Ingebrigsten and Chariot in the 2022 World Champs. Two runners who were battling from the front during the entire race, so much so that they spent extra energy fending each other off, and did not have the necessary closing speed in the final 100. That allowed a person like Jake Whiteman, who was not a serious gold medal threat, but still a solid contender, to pull an upset victory with the race of his life. Lillian Odera did very much the same thing, with a huge PB, which is an improvement of 4 seconds from last season. And this was actually a crazy fast race in general, with all 3 medalists getting sub 155. And it marks a full Kenyan sweep in the women's distance events all the way up to the marathon, though the men's side was far more competitive. But thank you very much for watching the video. It's been a great World Championships, I'd say. I might take a few days off though, given I've been grinding out videos quite a lot and uni is about to start up for me. I should have a video coming out soon before the end of the week though. Let me know your favourite race of this championships in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy training.